as many of you know, we had some crazy internet outage all day today, Wednesday, and so we ended up not being able to have our Zoom Bible study. And I thought about just postponing until next week, but we got good 14 weeks of Mark, and I want us to keep on track as best as possible. So I thought instead I would just offer a short reflection for you all. I'll read through the text for today, and then next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll just continue along with week 3 of Mark. So let's try to do that. I'm going to just read this. I'll just offer a few thoughts, maybe some food for thought for you to keep digging in and thinking about how this great part of the gospel might impact your own life this week. So, Mark chapter 1, verse 29 through 45. And immediately he left the synagogue, this is Jesus, and entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever, and immediately they told him about her. And he came to her and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown they brought to him all who were sick or oppressed by demons, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. Rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him and said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." And he said to them, "Let us go on to the next town, that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out." And he went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. And a leper came to him, imploring him and kneeling, and said to him, "If you will, you can make me clean." And moved with pity, he stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I will, be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. And Jesus sternly charged him and sent him away at once, and said to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priests, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded, for a proof to them." But he went out and began to talk freely about it, and to spread the news, so that Jesus could no longer openly enter a town, but was out in desolate places, and people were coming to him from every quarter. Okay, so if you're with us with week 1, we had the great jam-packed introduction to this gospel, the beginning of the good news. And we have John the Baptist proclaiming the way of the Lord. We have Jesus getting baptized, a voice from heaven saying, "You are my son in whom I am well pleased." We had Jesus being sent out into the wilderness to be tempted by the Satan. And then Jesus comes on the scene saying, "The time is fulfilled. Believe in the good news. The kingdom of God is at hand." He goes straight from there. What we skipped over was the calling of the first disciples, which was Peter and his brother Andrew, James and John were fishermen. And Jesus comes and says, "Come and follow me." And so we see these 4 here. We're not quite at the point where he has all 12 disciples with him. And then there was a pretty powerful demon experience where Jesus exorcised this demon in the passage right before, and the demon cries out, "I know who you are," and Jesus silences the demon. That's an important theme. So I'm just going to highlight, we'll stay briefly. This is kind of a little bit off the cuff, but I will share just some of the key observations that jump out at me and in some of the groups I've led, and some of the questions that might come up out of that. So one of the things to notice that I've come to notice as I'm studying Mark is both time and geography become really important. Time and geography. And so what that means is looking at the morning, evening, time type words, and also where are we. And so if you looked just before this, they were on the Sabbath. Jesus went to the synagogue and was teaching, and that's where he cast out this demon. And so immediately he left the synagogue. So this is still, the Jewish Sabbath was Saturday. So this is still that same Saturday. And he's leaving the synagogue, he's entering the house. And so maybe we could even look at, I'll do green for geography. So he's leaving the synagogue, entering the house of Simon and Andrew. And this is where the first scene happens. The time images? Well, we have this word immediately, and I'll go ahead and just notice that this word is a key word for Mark. Keep this word in particular in your mind because he uses it all the time, even in ways that why all the immediacy? It's like he wants us to see this as this fast-paced thing, or he's just cramming so many story after story after story. Immediately. There's another one down here in verse 42. So all of this immediacy is happening here. They're leaving the synagogue and going into the house. And then what else? What else kind of jumps out at you? Well, the first miracle in this moment is with Simon's mother-in-law. So Simon, also named Peter, probably the only disciple that was married from a couple moments like this, the fact that he has a mother-in-law. And Jesus comes and takes her by the hand, lifts her up, and she's healed completely, where she actually stands up and begins to serve them. And I love, just off the bat, we've been seeing big crowds gathered around Jesus, but we also see Jesus taking the time in a very personal, intimate way. He goes in the house and he takes care of Peter's family. He starts with his mother-in-law and he raises her up. And some people have asked in the past about this, like, what's going on here? Like, she was healed just to serve them. In our 21st century mindset, that might seem a little weird, but actually this word serve is the word where we get the church title deacon, so diakonos. She serves them. She's actually putting on display a pretty powerful image of what church leadership looks like. And I think the early church would have seen that in her, the way that being healed by Jesus enabled her to then serve Jesus and these disciples in a really powerful way. But just to notice the personal aspect of Jesus, to take care of Peter's mother-in-law. And then the next scene kind of blows it out again. So it goes from very little intimate to the whole city is around the door asking for healings. And so that evening, here's another time sequence, that evening at sundown. So now we're at Saturday night. And if you know Jewish custom, Sabbath was Friday night till Saturday night at sundown. So this is actually the first time after the Sabbath day of rest where the people could do work. And so bringing friends who were sick and needed healing, they waited for the proper time. Sabbath's over at sundown, and now they're crowding around the door. So he keeps healing, he's casting out demons, and here's something interesting. Kind of the first big question is he did not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. Okay, just hold on to that. We may have noticed that it happens again with the man who is cured of leprosy. Jesus sternly charges him and sends him away at once and says, "See that you say nothing to anyone." So the question might come up, why the secrecy? Why doesn't he want the demons to speak? Why doesn't he want this man to speak? We'll get to what this man does in a little bit, but that's a good question to start asking. Why the secrecy? Okay, the demons know who he is. Why doesn't he let them speak? And then just going through some more observations. One, I love verse 35, where you get this glimpse into the midst of all this busyness and crazy ministry. You see Jesus in his rhythms. He rises early in the morning. In our small group on Tuesday night this week, it was pointed out, a great observation, that it was the evening at sundown on Saturday night after the Sabbath, and there's this crowd of people. Jesus is healing and casting out demons. That would take a lot of energy, take a lot out of you. And you're just imagining that probably went late into the night. And yet Jesus was focused enough, and he had enough of a rhythm where even though he stayed up late into the night doing a lot of intense ministry, he still gets up very early in the morning while it was still dark. Mark is adamant how early it actually was. And he goes away to a desolate place and he prays. And so we start to see, I think that the point to draw out there is that Jesus has a different source of energy. Jesus doesn't get his energy simply from having 8 hours of sleep. He's getting his energy straight from the Father in this time that he's spending alone in prayer. So he departs to a desolate place where he prays. Now, Simon, Peter, like kind of the lead disciple, goes and finds him and says, Jesus, everyone's looking for you. Right? Well, makes sense. You just had a great night of ministry. Peter's thinking, oh, the revival's in town. It's starting. We got round 2. There's a whole nother crowd. Jesus, this is a great way to build the church. We are really just taken off. And we're just going to have packed auditoriums from here on out. And so Peter's thinking, this is the best way to do ministry. Come on, Jesus, let's do it. Round 2. You ready? And what does Jesus say? I love this. This is perplexing for me and comical, but Peter's like, this is what we're supposed to do, right, Jesus? And Jesus says, let's go to the next town that I may preach there. That's why I've come. Jesus says, no, I know that there's a whole crowd of people looking for healing and miracles and looking for me, but I'm going to go to the next town. Come on. Just on a personal note, this passage really speaks to me. I can resonate a lot with Peter. The desire to figure out what is life going to look like, especially in ministry. As a full-time minister, there's a lot of times where I think to myself, okay, I know what ministry is supposed to look like right now in this season, and this is what we're supposed to do. And I get up like Peter saying, okay, Jesus, we're going to do this today, right? Big crowd of people, let's go. And many times God has come in and said, you know what, we're going to do things differently. And the flexibility that's needed there, the trust in God to know when God changes our plans, there's a reason for that. And I can kind of resonate with, I'm sure what Simon must have felt like in that moment, to say, oh, Jesus is breaking out of my expectations. He's doing something differently. But there's this lingering question. Well, Jesus, there's all these people needing help. There's these sick and hurting. Why didn't you heal them? What's going on? Hold on to that for just a minute. So Jesus continues to go throughout Galilee now. So we're back. We got some more geography. Now he's going throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues, back in the synagogues, and casting out demons. And here a leper comes to him. And there's this great picture of faith. Actually, I think this whole scene, Mark, one of the key words that Mark doesn't actually use, he doesn't have to say the word, but a key word for me to understand this whole passage is the word faith. We are seeing on display pictures of faith, from Simon's mother-in-law getting up out of being healed and then serving her Lord, to the people here where Peter is searching and finding Jesus. That act of searching and finding Jesus is this great picture of faith. And then here, this phrase, if you will, you can make me clean. The leper doesn't say, I'm not sure if you can. If you can, will you make me clean? That's a different sort of request. He says, I know you can. Will you? I know you can clean me. Do you want to? What a great act of surrender, of faith in that one sentence. I know you can, Jesus, but do you want to? It's a powerful thing of faith. And then Jesus, moved with pity, stretches out his hand and touches him. Now, something remarkable is going on in verse 41. So uncleanliness and cleanliness in the Old Testament, it didn't quite mean sinful. You could become unclean for multiple things. For burying a loved one, touching a dead body, you'd become unclean. That was not a sin. That was something you had to do, but you're now ritually impure. And so being impure was not the same as being sinful, but it was connected sometimes. It would stop you from going on the inside. It would stop you from going into worship. And specifically for a skin disease like this, as a leper, he was perpetually unclean, which means nobody could touch him. Because the way that uncleanliness worked in the Old Testament is it only flowed one direction. If I'm unclean and you touch me, you become unclean. It only flows in that direction. And so this man went through his life. He had to yell and warn people, I'm unclean, don't come near me, don't touch me. And just imagine, it's actually not that hard to imagine. We've been living for almost a year in this pandemic with lack of human contact. Not to the extent that this man would have experienced, but maybe we've experienced some of that. We miss being able to give people big hugs and handshakes. And this leper, to the extreme, had to completely distance himself from any human contact. Jesus, before healing him, out of his pity, what a great image where Jesus says, I see that you're unclean. And he reaches out and he touches him. That human contact, so powerful. Jesus doesn't stop there. That alone would have been this powerful act of mercy and grace. But then Jesus is different than everybody else because, like I said, uncleanliness flowed in one direction. Jesus reverses the flow. Jesus, his cleanliness can make you clean. So when he touches this man, instead of Jesus becoming unclean, like ritual law said he should have, he actually made this man clean and he healed him. It's this powerful redirection. Jesus is the source of cleanliness, of life, of healing, and he can touch you and make you clean rather than the other way around. Jesus says, I am willing. I do want to be clean. And then immediately the leprosy left him. Now Jesus says, okay, don't say anything to anyone, but go instead, show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded for him. That takes us back to Leviticus chapter 14. There is a law, the whole chapter about leprosy in particular. If you're unclean and then you become clean, here's what you do. To go to the priest, you offer this sacrifice. The priest kind of signs off that you are indeed clean. And there's something really important here. Jesus knows that him just healing this man is not enough. This man needs to be healed physically, yes, but he also needs to be restored to his community. And only by going through the right, proper rituals. He's a Jew in Israel, and so he needed to go to the temple, do the required offering so that the priest could then ratify it and say, you are clean. And so what Jesus is doing here by telling him to go is allowing this man to have a full healing, both physically but now also relationally, and be restored to his community. Now the man doesn't do it. Instead, he goes out and talks freely about it. The news spread so that Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but was out in desolate places, and people were coming to him from every quarter. A quick word on this whole secrecy thing. One, the demons make a lot of sense. Just because the demons know the truth about Jesus does not mean he wants them to be his PR folks, right? You do not want demons to be telling people who you are, even if they're speaking the truth, right? I think that's kind of what's in the background here. Their reputation will precede them, and it's not going to be good, So you don't want demons being the ones that are letting everyone know who you are. But the man who he's healing, why not them? And you actually kind of see it lived out. There's something about Jesus that needs to remain slightly secretive. Why would Jesus want to remain secretive? A little bit hard to find. I think we're seeing it here when the man begins instead to talk freely. It kind of it requires Jesus to change tactics. He can't just go openly into a town because now there's too many people, too big of crowds, and so he has to stay out in the desolate places. But I think there's something else going on here. There's one other repetition that has always perplexed me about this passage, and it's the repetition of the desolate place. Jesus went out and prayed. That's where he communed with his Father in heaven. That's where he connected with God. And then here, once again, he's out in a desolate place, and the people were coming to him from every quarter. I think there's something about needing to actually seek and find Jesus that's really important to him. He's not going to come. It's almost, maybe we don't like this, but he's not going to make it that easy because he needs people like Peter, like Simon Peter, who are going to search and find him. I actually think that's partly behind what's happening in verse 38. Jesus does not say, oh, those people, I don't want to heal them. Right? He doesn't actually say that. He says, no, I'm going to go somewhere else. The implication that I'm pulling out of that is if they want to find Jesus, they're going to have to keep seeking. They're going to have to then walk to the next town. It's actually an invitation to go further in their faith, to say, yeah, it was easy. This first day, there was this nice, easy on-ramp to healing. But if you want to keep finding Jesus, you need to search and find him and figure out where he's at today. And so these people in verse 38, where Jesus says, oh, that whole crowd of people, essentially he's saying, well, I guess they're going to have to come find me. And then we see that at the end of this scene, People were coming to him from every corner, into the desolate places, the places where he had already set up, like this was his holy space to meet with God. Now people are coming to meet with him. They're mimicking what Jesus has already put on display. I hope that kind of makes sense, but there's something about this where I think the secrecy is so that people will have to seek and find Jesus. I mean, it makes more sense in our own life. God is here. He is real. He is moving in our life, but we don't always see him. We don't always sense his presence. We don't always know what he's saying. There's a way that God's actually set it up so that we have to keep seeking and finding afresh every single day, saying, okay, Lord, what does it look like today? Where are you moving today? What would it mean for me to go and find you in the desolate places today? Even when it might mean that Jesus breaks your expectations and you don't quite understand what he's doing, are we willing to step out and keep seeking him, keep finding him? So just wrap up now. There are some great things that we can pull for applications here. The first one, kind of centering in on this word faith. And for you today, how does this passage help you kind of navigate your own faith? There's some great images here. Have you met Jesus? Have you been healed in this personal way? What would it look like for you to begin to serve him as Simon's mother-in-law gets to do? She serves her Lord. What a joy that must have been. And what a great image of Christian leadership that this woman is giving us, that she gets to serve him. That's, again, the word deacon is behind that word. Or like Simon, who needs to find Jesus that next morning, and so he has to go walking into the desolate places, and he searches and he finds him. Where do you need to be like Simon today? Where do you need faith like this leper who can, you don't say, can you, Jesus? You say, I know you can. Do you want to? And you seek him and you implore him and you say, God, I need you to move in this way. I know that you can. What is your will? And surrender yourself to Jesus' will. And yeah, there's just, again, great images of faith here. Maybe another one, I love this way that the way the leper is cleaned. Jesus touches him, very personal. He heals him physically, but then he also restores him to the whole community. And maybe we can be a part of that kind of movement of healing as well. Are there people in your life that need to be walked alongside, that need a physical touch, a friendship? Are there ways that we can bring the presence of Jesus into their life? And are there people, maybe reflect and pray this week, are there people in your life that need to be restored to the community? It might mean an act of forgiveness, extending a hand to someone, to a neighbor. Is there a way that you can invite them into a deeper fellowship, into deeper community? There's Jesus is modeling for us what he wants to see as people being wholly healed in all aspects of their life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally. Are there ways that you can step out and do that as well? So as you can see, there's a lot here, and even more than we talked about. But maybe think through the images of faith for yourself, and maybe the challenge for mission to say, is there someone in my life that I need to reach out and draw in to fellowship and to connect them to the presence of Jesus and to healing in their own life? So thanks, everyone. And looking forward to jumping in next week. We'll be in Mark chapter 2. And hope you're having a great week, and hope this internet thing gets resolved soon so that we can continue to fellowship together. God bless.